What is up, my people? Welcome back to the Youth Pod. You like that one?
No.
Okay. She didn't like that one. Sorry, guys. We've been doing retakes, but anyways, we're going to get started because today's episode is an amazing episode, and it's not just for you single people out there, but it's also for specifically you people that are engaged out there, because we're going to be talking about marriage preparation, and we have three amazing guests. My beautiful wife, baby, looking more and more gorgeous every day. And
brownie points.
Our amazing friends, Gaby and Alejo. Thank you guys for being here.
Welcome.
They are two leaders here at our church. They've been here for forever, maybe a little more behind the camera. Alejo, you've been working here for how long, Ale?
Probably like close to 10 years.
That man has been behind every recording you've ever seen in this entire ministry, just so you know. So
just the good ones.
Yeah, just the good ones. But the reason, obviously, we have you guys here is you guys are recently married as of how many months now?
He knows the answer to that
5
question.
months.
Good job.
5 months. Wow, good job.
5 months.
Nice training.
He's gonna. Good
She
things will happen
forgot
for him.
this to celebrate this month, so
Gabriella,
That's
how
not
could you?
true.
Everyone
We
knows you
forgot.
stopped
I
at 6
took him on a
months.
trip to Colombia.
yes, and we kind of forgot about that, but we remembered last night or 2 days ago.
Okay, well, that's all that matters. And then you get to celebrate one more month, because everyone knows after 6 months, it turns into yearly celebrations.
Yeah.
Well, you guys still do monthly, no?
We
I
always,
mean-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we did monthly. Like, we dated for about two and a half years.
I don't know.
2.5 years, and we celebrated every single month. So whenever our
For real?
our anniversary was, like, it was every 18th.
Oh,
so we
that's
would always make it a
awesome.
point to do something that 18th.
Like, it would just help to go back to, like, not forget to go out on a date or do something, like, nice. So it's not like it was a big celebration or, like, we would, like, send, like, really long text messages.
No.
It wasn't like a month
appreciate you so
anniversary.
much.
Yeah. It was more so like, hey guys, Gaby, like the 18th is coming up. Let's
I love her
go out
personality.
for a nice place or do like a special activity or so.
That's cool. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, well, so 5 months, happily married. What do you, I guess since talking about today, marriage preparation, what are some things that you guys did? And then obviously we just make this a conversation of that you guys did to prepare for when you guys got married. What are some big things? Like, let's imagine someone is watching right now and they're engaged, a couple, and they're like, we're 8 months away. Like, what are some tips that you guys can give to have these people start to get ready?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're
I think
single
so.
and they're like, I don't know, but I'm ready for my mans, and
Yeah. I think on my end, something that I kept on visualizing is I visualized what I wanted my marriage to look like.
Okay.
So it was kind of just setting a standard for how I wanted my life to be, and then I would measure myself by that as well.
Okay.
So for example, it's kind of like your values. So it's standing firm on your values, what you expect from the person you're with, what you expect when it comes to commitment or compromise. And you kind of set that tone, and then you measure yourself by that as well. So for example, if I wanted Alejo to like plan dates, I would make sure to also plan dates because I expected that from him, but then I'm also contributing that.
Gotcha.
So that's something that I did to prepare for marriage, because I feel like just doing that sets a tone for it.
Got you. Because I think as we've all experienced being married, whatever you're living in your dating season
100%.
is going to be amplified in your marriage season.
Yep.
So like setting standards from when you're dating is so important, because once you're married, like if you're doing, yeah,
You bought the car already.
not-
You're done.
yeah, literally, and not
You
just
should have
that,
done your research.
literally, and not just that, but if you're not doing it right in dating, there's no way you're gonna be able to do it right in marriage. You know.
For sure.
Ale, is there any tips that you have for people that?
Yeah, and I think just to like expand a little on what you're saying, like I wasn't a believer of the things that people would say that, oh, whatever happens in dating and your dating life, just get like highlighted in your married life. Because I was like, oh, I don't think it's gonna. It literally is like the good and the bad.
Yeah,
like
it's
it
true.
just like it stays the way. And I think that that's why I think this topic is really important, because a lot of people feel or think that getting married will change their lives forever,
yeah.
right? And it's not like that. I mean,
Doesn't fix
there's things that
issues.
change. I mean, it does change.
Yeah.
But also, like all the good and the bad that you're bringing into a relationship,
Yeah.
it comes with it. So sometimes people forget that. But back to your question, I think for preparation, at least for us, something that we made very a decision while we were dating is that we were gonna take everything day by day.
Gotcha.
We were not gonna burn through the season that we were in. So one of the things that it wasn't, let's say, a decision that we made together, but I think individually and kind of we were really good at reading each other is that we never spoke about marriage while we were dating ever. Ever since the day from the day that I asked her out to be my wife, before that day we never spoke about marriage. However, we always spoke about what she was saying, which were values, morals, little questions here and there that would sort of hint to us that that is the person that we want to marry. And so I'm not saying that people need to do it like that, but it kind of allowed us to enjoy our dating life, you know, and we were not trying to get married while we were just getting to know each other. We're not trying to get married while we were just trying to, you know, be together and kind of grow that part of that season. So that was really nice because we never had the pressure of from the beginning, I need to be perfect because I'm going to marry this person, you know? So it kind of allowed us to know each other a little bit more. And then I remember the day that I obviously, we got engaged, the day after we spoke about marriage. And it was like that, now we're getting
we've been
married.
working towards.
Because now we're here. Like the foundation is set for that conversation because it's like we already set ourselves to that standard of things that like in those, like he said, in those little conversations of like, oh, I would want this, you know, or I expect this. So then it gave like myself and I gave Alejo the chance to actually develop ourselves and our foundation before we could even talk about those topics.
Yeah, and it's important to enjoy every season, like what you were saying. But it's
that.
also important that before you even get to that point of engagement, like it sounded like a joke, but you do have to do your research. Make sure that you have the same beliefs. You have to make sure that you align in like how you want to raise your kid and how you're gonna do with finances, believing in the same God. You know, like all of those little things that seem maybe insignificant or too big or like too far off. Like those are the most important things for that foundation of marriage, because if not, like once you're there and you're on the wagon, you can't get off, you know. You got to figure it out, and if not, you're just gonna be in for a roller coaster that's not fun.
Yeah, and that is so true. Like I remember, like I would come up with, every time we would go on a date or whatever, like I wanted to ask a question that would like hint to marriage, that was important for that, you know. So even like you mentioned, finances was a huge thing for me. Like I wanted to see how her financial life was, like what, like you know, where she was with that.
You made Gaby bring like her tax reports and
well, it's just, you know, like a little bit of that. Like I just wanted to know like what your strengths and your weaknesses were, because like even now, like I was reading a while back a stat that most of divorces end up because of financial problems. 100%. So I made a decision that I didn't want that to be something to worry about. Like if I'm gonna have another problem in marriage, I don't want finances to be one. And it's not necessarily the amount of money, it's just how you prioritize the finances that are coming in. And then even to the point of sex drive. Like I remember dating, I was like, Gaby, what do you think? Like, or do you think you should have a high sex drive or a low sex drive? And I feel like even talking about those things are important because, and if she was truthful like in what she felt, and even myself, I was like, oh, I think this is where I rank or whatever. Because you never know. It's questions that are going to be very important 100%. In marriage. But those were questions that we started asking definitely even before.
I want to hit back at the financial aspect of things because I think that's something maybe that doesn't get spoken about so much, I guess, in church culture when it comes to marriage. I think a lot of times we tackle, I guess, like, you know, tackling your inner demons and like your past and all that, which I think is very, very important, of course, which we'll get into that. But I think finances, I think, is such an important topic because a lot of couples, I feel like, blindly go into marriage not thinking about, okay, like not only are we going to make double, but our expenses are probably going to more than double, 100%. You know? And like, Gabs, I want to ask you, like, how did you feel when Alejo, like, I guess kind of approached you and he asked you, he's like, yo, like, let me see, like, what's going on with your bank account? Like, how's that?
I think I'm very observant. So I pick up on things, and I definitely picked up early on that he was very into finances. Like, not in a way that like he was stingy or didn't want to pay for things, but I knew that that was like a priority in his life, like his savings, his investments, you know, like he has like even like rules of like budgeting down to zero, you know? So I picked up on that, and not necessarily because he was telling me to do it, but just he was sharing about something that was important to him, that he applies in his life. So then I started picking up on it because I am like competitive by nature. So I remember being like, okay, I want to impress him when like that date comes, right? So I remember that I started saving more intentionally, and I just started being like, okay, I'm going to save a little bit more. So then the date that comes where he's like, hey, like, let's look at our finances. Like, I want to be able to impress him, you know? And then also I was still very private about my finances. So even like when he was like, hey, like, let's look at your accounts, I felt so naked. I was like, oh my God, like, you're going to know how much I spent last month on the stupidest thing. Like, you're going to see like that Sephora, like
Jesus.
transaction.
Why'd you go to Target 12 times in one
Like
month?
Sephora 200.
Target 200.
Literally. So that felt very naked, but he also made it feel very safe. You
Gotcha.
know, like he never made me
What a
feel
man
like
of God, bro.
yeah. He never made me feel like, oh, like you shouldn't be doing that, or like I wasn't doing anything crazy, but still, like, to me it was like an affirmation that like it's okay to be like transparent and
Yeah.
be vulnerable even with finances, because I mean at the end of the day your money is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what you were like, now that you're married it's not, right? Because you guys are sharing everything. But like when you're single, it's like up until this moment you've been managing your finances on your own. Like every dollar you accounted for, and if it went to that random Amazon purchase that like, you know, wasn't the wisest, it went there. Or if it
Yeah.
went to savings, it went there. So it just depends. But for me, yeah, it did feel very naked, but then it was like, okay, this is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? Because like, you know how we said everything in dating gets amplified in marriage. Look at finances, for example. It's crazy how you were like, you know, like it's an aspect of intimacy, honestly, where
Literally.
you're able to share something so intimate as like your financial life with somebody. But because when you're married, yeah, your financial life is combined with theirs, so it's like it's mixed. So it's not only can you do it and then maybe like, I don't know, once a month or something that Alejo would look at it. Now it's like every single day. Like if there's a
Literally.
purchase, like that man's gonna know. And it's like, okay, it's teaching you to be a good
Yeah.
steward and
Oh,
like
yeah, I
trust
know.
each other.
He knows. He's on it. He's like, oh, what
That's
happened?
a good steward of finances. But no, I love that. It's crazy because I think that's a level of intimacy that people sometimes I think don't reach until they try to reach once they're married. But then it's so much more difficult, I think, in marriage, because if that I don't want to say distrust, but level of intimacy when it comes to little things like that aren't there when you're dating, like how difficult will it be once you're married
Yeah.
to like
And we
do it?
spoke about that the day after we got engaged. We started budgeting together.
That's so
We
good.
started saying, you know what, like, what do you feel? Like, I started doing research on like what are the best ways to do like finances as a couple, and everyone has a different style,
Yeah.
right? And so I went through all those styles, and I was like, you know what, I think this one fits us better. And then I presented to her, and like, are you okay with this? And she's like, you know what, I want to change this, or a little bit more of this. Okay, let's draft it together. And it's kind of like like it's a lot of communication, and just like, especially in something in finances, because she works hard too. Like it's not just me working hard.
Yeah.
And so I want her to feel like she has a say in something that she is working.
Of course.
Because it would suck if you are like, oh no, like I know what I'm doing, and then you kind of like quiet down your partner. I don't think that's the way to go either.
Mm-hmm.
So even after the day we got engaged, we were like, okay, we're doing this, you know, let's talk about it together. Let's be on this project together.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to feel like that. It doesn't need to feel like you're like calling the shots for whatever reason. It's more like, hey, I want to involve you. I want to let you know where your money is going, or our money is going, you know? And it is so nice to be able to say that it's ours now, you know, like at least in our relationship, we want to make sure like whatever she makes, I make it, like it's our stuff.
Yeah.
Like it became to be ours. So there's no more that, oh, you do this and I do this, and you pay for this and I pay for this. Like we're paying on this together. And whether like there's a month that maybe she spends more, and maybe there's a month that I spend more. Like we're building this life together, and the
Yeah.
decisions that we make individually are meant to help grow us together.
Yeah.
So that was really nice.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I'm assuming you guys have a shared account. Like, or how do you guys feel about when it comes to like bank? Because I think that's something that's I've never heard anyone really.
Do you want me to talk about that, or
Yeah.
okay? So.
This is the Tommy and Alejo show. We're just
No. The shared accounts, it's great.
Sorry,
I just
baby.
haven't gone to set it up for us since
Okay.
we got married. I've been procrastinating this for 5 months, but I don't need to, because again, I'm not gonna plug this in, right? Like I'm not getting paid to say this, but Rocket Money has really helped me to like.
sponsor us.
Yes, honestly, you should.
Rocket
but
Money?
I run everything through spreadsheets. Like I'm very like old school, so all my like the business income and my personal income goes through spreadsheets. And then I was like, now it's our income, right? So we're together. So I'm like, hey, can I run it in my own spreadsheets? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. But then there's a lot of accounts, right? Like I do something called credit card churning, and I've been doing it for years. So I have like 20 something credit cards that I have to keep like track of.
Yeah.
And now I have her stuff coming in. So the best way that I found to do it was to put everything on Rocket Money. And basically it's like one big account. So I
Gotcha.
don't have to, like, we don't necessarily need to have joint accounts, although I'm going to work towards that.
Yeah.
But it's not, like, it's not a biggie. Like,
I remember when Tommy and I first combined our accounts, I was like, oh crap. I was like, like Gaby said, like, it feels so like intrusive. It's like, oh, I can't
Now
do
you're locked in.
everything that I used to. I have to be wiser and smarter now. And, you know, that's also the importance of like choosing the right person and
Yeah,
like the
that's
right
true.
partner, because like maybe you are a great budgeter, but then that other person is out there going happy-go-lucky, spending money like crazy, and they don't pay attention to that stuff. You know, those are things that can affect your marriage as well. And we go back to like the whole like talking beforehand, you know, and that's why it's so important as well. And then something I wanted to kind of talk about as well is that I know that before you guys even got married, you guys did counseling. What was that like for you guys? Like, do you think that that helped you in your marriage now?
100%. I think that
Pause
was
for dramatic effect.
one of like the best parts of like our engagement
That's
season,
good.
because you have to understand that you don't know all the answers.
Definitely.
And there are people out there that have been in the game for a while. They have the experience, they have the wisdom, and they're so open to sharing. But we have the tendency, especially like our age, where we
Yeah.
we know what we're doing. Like it's no big deal. It's just marriage. It's not. Like
Yeah.
so we actually had like 3 like marriage counseling meetings with like 3 different people.
Wow.
You know, and each like counseling session was so different than the one before or the one after, because people are offering their unique experiences.
That's
We even
true.
had like a financial meeting, you know,
That's awesome.
with a couple, and we identified so much with them. So even going into those counseling sessions, you start to learn stuff about yourself, about your relationship, about how you want to handle things, how you want to execute things. And if you don't get that counseling, like you're going to be at such a disadvantage,
That's true.
because now you don't have the wisdom that's right there waiting for you. It's low hanging fruit. You just have to grab it.
Come on.
So definitely it was an amazing experience. We 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah, on my end, I think, you know, what Gaby says is very true. I'm the kind of person that whenever I buy anything, I watch like 30 reviews on
Oh my
YouTube
God, that's Tommy.
and do like research.
He's gonna buy one jean and he has to look at like 30 different
the fit?
I have to know what's the
websites.
best
Yeah.
one I'm getting
Jesus
for my
Christ.
money. Like,
Exactly. So imagine if we do that with products that we buy, how much more with
Dang.
marriage,
Yeah.
you know?
Bars.
So we don't know things. We don't know it all. Especially, I've never been married before and she's never been married before. So,
Gaby.
so this is it, you know? So how can we be the best version of ourselves? And like she said, like there's so many great couples around that you can ask, and everybody has their own
good.
experience. So counseling, definitely something that I think is very important.
What's something you guys would say that you learned in counseling that I think has helped you guys so much now in marriage? Like just one thing.
Yeah, I think something for at least me, it's something extremely basic. Like I remember that we went into one of the counseling meetings, and it was actually Pastor Alejandro, you know, and he was like, so who's gonna do the chores? Like something
Oh,
that
dang.
simple. And he's like, who's gonna take the trash out? And who's gonna wash the dishes? And who's gonna cook? Who's gonna do the bed? And he was asking all these questions that when you're married already, you're kind of like, like who's gonna do that? Or like, I did it this time. Is that person gonna do it next? And it builds this false expectation because there hasn't been a conversation about it.
good.
So just that basic conversation of like, just, I don't want to say assigning roles, but being like, hey, like, it opened up this thing for us was like, oh, I love to cook, so I'll handle the cooking, you know? And then he's like, oh, like,
I love to throw the trash.
no.
I can take
He's
care
like,
of that.
he likes doing laundry. So he's like, you know, I actually like doing
I know
laundry.
you do.
And I'm like,
Mind it.
yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Me too. So that's something we can both do. So just like learning those different things about ourselves, I feel like it killed so much disappointment
That's good.
than when we would have already been married and been like, okay, I just cooked. Is he going to help me with the dishes?
Yeah.
Or for him, it's like, oh, does she even want me in the kitchen with her when she's cooking?
Mm.
There are days that you're cooking and you just want to be by yourself.
Yeah.
In that
True.
space. And then there are days where like, oh, like, yeah, come help me cut this onion. Or I don't know, something like that. So it's like,
you do half, I do the other half.
yeah. So it just eliminated so much like disappointment. So just in having those basic conversations.
That's so good.
Because you think about that at least for me, I think about like that like very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that goes back to also to communication. Like communication is so important. And You guys know me. I'm not much of a talker. Like I have
You're
struggled with
not?
that. Yeah, I have struggled with that
not a
forever.
yapper.
But now being married, like I've had to be intentional with my communication and being intentional with talking. And that came from even from dating, in that dating stage where I had to like get out of my comfort zone and express what was on my mind, express what was bothering me and whatnot. Like he can't read my mind, even though I wish he could.
I try so
sometimes.
hard.
He really does try. And I've gotten a lot better. But those are one of those things that you have to really like also consider when you're going into with a partner, because like, are you going to be that person like Tommy? Like Tommy's willing to like fight through no matter what to like get me to that point, and I've gotten better, so he doesn't have to fight so much. But
Bro, I'm battle damaged, guys.
or do you need to be with someone that's like a yapper that will go like him, and he will be the first one saying this and this bothering me, and let's fix this right now on the spot? I'm not like that. You know, I'm the type of person that I have to like step away for a moment, calm down, collect my thoughts, and then be able to move forward. So those are the things that you have to like look at when you are dating, when you are learning those little things about each other as well.
Absolutely.
So
And it's funny, I have a story. I think it was early on when we had gotten married. And there was this one time that I was really upset. And it was one of those first moments where you're like, you've heard about communication. You've heard about don't go to sleep angry. And all these things, right? It sounds so beautiful. But that day I was angry. And I go to bed and we're just laying like this.
Oh my God, that awkward silence. No cuddling, no
And
nothing.
the atmosphere is
nothing.
thick.
Yeah, the atmosphere is thick. Like it's dark. There's a little bit of the light coming from the outside. And we're just laying there like...
No one can
You
fall
hear
asleep.
the heavy breathing.
Yes, like no one's on their phone. And we're just both
Damn,
mad,
bro, that's how
right?
you know you're mad.
We're just there like that. And it was a moment where I was like, I could choose to go mad. I mean, I could choose to go to sleep angry, or I could really bring it up. And when I was like, this is on me. It's not so much on her this time, right? So I was like, I
you
need
were
to
the one that
speak
was
up
upset.
that I was bothered or whatever. And it really felt like getting delivered, yo. Like it was like that. Like I was in bed and I was like, yo, like something's here. I'm like, I could just go to sleep, because that's the other thing. Like when we're dating,
Yeah.
I drop you off.
That's
I'm
it.
back home.
I'm gonna go.
I go play with the boys. I go
Yeah,
work.
bro.
I go
Oh
do
my
something.
God.
I
Get my
don't have
mind
to
off
worry
of
about you
things.
until maybe the next day.
It's true.
Maybe. But now you're married and you're like, oh, dude, we're going up the same staircase. Like, you know, like we're entering the same room, like
Brush my
everything.
teeth in the same bathroom.
And so I remember I was like, and then I was like, okay, dude, I need to say something. And so I was like, it was so quiet, and I was like, Gaby. And I just like, it just felt like something came out.
Damn, that's
And I was like,
crazy.
this really pissed me off. You know, like really upset at me.
Oh,
or
I
whatever.
know those
I don't even remember
conversations.
what it was, but it just felt so much like to be able to practice what you're taught, you know,
Yeah.
or like practice what you preach or practice what you learn is so much harder than just saying, yeah, don't go, you know, to sleep mad, or
Yeah.
like communication. Like it's hard.
Definitely easier said than done.
And then you're there in
Absolutely.
the fire and you're like, oh, now's
Or
the
then
time
when
to
you know
apply.
that they're upset, but they haven't said anything, and you're like, "What's wrong?" They're like, "Nothing." What's wrong? Nothing. And then they say it, and you're just like, "Bro, like, for the love of God."
Oh
Yes.
my God, I love that, dude. No, because it's true, because you really can't, again, amplify it. Everything in marriage
Yeah.
is, and I think like that, I feel like that's kind of like the biggest takeaway if anybody's watching today. Number one, communication, and number two, understand that everything you're doing in your dating or engagement season is going to be so amplified in your marriage season. And it's you like what you said, you can't escape it at that
You
point. Like
can't.
Yeah.
you're stuck with that person's right next to you, and
Yeah.
it's like, exactly.
Finger guns.
You get in big trouble if you don't tackle that. I have another question. What's something that you guys would say helped you guys, I guess, in a spiritual manner, I guess, going from dating to marriage? Like, what's something that you guys did to prepare for marriage spiritually? Because obviously, like, there's a lot of, you know, we're a spiritual church, so I think we need to, of course, we need to hit home and hit the word of God too. Like, what's something you guys did to strengthen or maybe like to build up to that moment? And
I would say two things. At least for me, one of the things that towards the end of our dating season, right, we started receiving a couple prophetic words, you know, and I think just learning to believe that and saying, coming together and be like, hey, we're going to believe for this. And I could give an example later on how that turned out. And then the second thing is like having the expectation for God to be involved. For us, that was very, very important. Like I like my expectation of the presence of God in our wedding was very important.
Wow.
Like that for me, that he was the most important guest.
Amen.
And we wanted to make sure that he felt invited and that he was involved in every decision that we made, right? And like
I can attest that he was there because I couldn't stop crying at that wedding, bro. Oh God.
That's good. Yes. And so I remember that we had, I think, a prayer night with the youth, and it was like a month and a half before our wedding or something, and it was just beautiful to know that God was involved in our relationship.
That's so good.
And so just, I think, to answer your question, is to have that expectation
Okay.
that God wants you to be together. God wants you guys to celebrate your marriage.
That's good.
Like, he's our father and we're his children.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how our natural fathers are so excited that we get married, how much more our heavenly father,
Amen.
and he understands purpose, understands destiny, understands all these things. And so just the expectation for God's manifestation to be involved in your relationship, I think, is important to have. And in one of those prayers youth that we have, like, the Lord spoke to me so much about Gaby that, like, I started writing my vows, or kind of continue writing my vows that night in prayer.
Wow.
And it was because he was so involved in our relationship, and just wanted to make, like, I knew a version of Gaby that there was not enough talking, texting, calling, being together, dating, hanging out, dinners that I could have known if it's not because God showed me that part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, like, I remember very clearly that night, because that night was like a night of, like, the Lord was like here's my daughter, like this version of my daughter, like the spiritual part of it.
That's a big load to carry.
Absolutely. Bro. It was very, very, like, I felt very responsible, So just like our natural parents, like they I'm sure you asked Joce's dad, what's up, like, can I have your daughter?
Oh God, I'll never forget that conversation. Panera on 152nd.
Same thing. Like, I feel like for me, that prepared me to go to God and like kind of present our marriage and our relationship, and for him to be like, yeah, like, this is my daughter and I'm giving it to you. Wow. So that was really special.
Okay. What about for you, Gabs? Is there anything that, like, I guess you feel like you can give advice spiritually that you did to prepare for being a wife?
I think that's the key right there. I mean, I remember that in one of the counseling sessions, like, they said, as a wife, you're called to take care of him. Mm-hmm. You are to run with him, but also take care of him. His soul, his spirit, like, physically, and I felt the burden immediately. Wow. So to me, it was like, I don't want to just be like a regular wife that's just there. Like, I want to uplift him. I want to love him on the hardest days, but not even with my love, but with the love of God. Yeah.
Amen.
So I remember that I really
level.
like took it to prayer, and I'm like, God, like, prepare me with that love so that I
good.
can give that love.
That's so good.
And that was always an indicator for me. Like, before I met Alejo, it's something that I always wanted. I never came to the Lord with a list of what I wanted. I want him to look like this. I want him to look like that. I want him to do that. For me, I was just like, Lord, I just want to be with someone that loves you. And not just like, oh, I love God, and then, I'm living a double life. But no, I want to be with someone that loves you more than they could ever love me. Mm-hmm. Because in turn, they will be loving me with your love.
Come on.
Amen.
So then, like I said earlier, I started to measure myself with that standard. So I just kept on asking the Lord to prepare my heart so that I can give of that love. Not Gaby's love, because, like, I don't think I'm the warmest person in the world.
I warmed her up.
Come on,
I really did.
My man.
I'm telling you.
He's the fire in Gaby's soul.
It's true though. She walks in sometimes with the smile on her face just because she was Alejo. So that wasn't
true.
before.
Wow, bro.
That didn't happen beforehand.
You have powers, bro.
Let's go.
Yeah, and like a part of that, like he used to call me like the ice, like I was like an ice princess, I think is what
like an ice cube.
An ice cube. There we go. Ice princess.
Ice princess. Ice cube.
Princess.
Four extremes, man.
Something like that. And I remember that started, like, that is how I met him. I was very cold.
Dang.
And to me, that was just my normal. I've been like that my whole life. But I never realized that, I guess, that petition that I made in my heart for the person that I'm supposed to be with to love me with the Father's love.
Amen.
was already becoming manifest when he came into my life, because the ice just started to melt off and melt off and melt off, and I became a different person. And it's not that it was ever like, oh, this is the love of God. It just felt so natural.
Yeah.
But that was like a petition in my heart. So I guess to summarize, it would be give yourself to the Lord and have the Lord do that work in you, so that you can be that person for your significant other.
That's so good.
Because it's very easy to just talk about, like, you meet someone and your emotions, you fall in love or you fall in like, whichever comes first. And then you're like,
that's another topic.
Yo, that's a whole preaching right there.
Right.
and you're like, oh,
what I-
let's talk about marriage. Like, that's so common in this generation where people just jump into like, oh, so when we're married and it's been like 2 weeks of knowing each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's where like relationships fail, because if you're already jumping to the finish line, then you skip out on the entire process that's
so
supposed
true.
to mature you, grow you, and build that
teaching,
foundation. You're already marrying the person before, like Alejo says, you reviewed the product or like you just shopped it, you know?
Yeah.
So just setting that foundation and allowing to like telling the Lord, like, do that work in me so that I can be what you want me to be.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. Can I
And
start
it's
calling you
complete.
Frozen from now on?
You can.
She's no longer that cold at all, actually. I'm like,
Alejo really
she really caught fire.
Come on.
Something I wanted to say also is that it's very important to know who you are as a person before even like thinking about
That's
dating
true,
or
too.
anything like that.
Very
Like
good
one of
point.
the things that for me, at least when I was getting to know Tommy before that, like I remember like a year or two before, I was like in a point in my life where I was just like, you know what, God, like I'm just surrendering the thought, like I'm surrendering everything, like I'm just gonna focus on like my career, focus on you, and just like find who I am, like figure myself out. And in that process, I remember it's funny because like I took a picture of myself and I sent it to my friend. It was Snapchat times, and I sent it to her. I'm like, oh, this time next year I'm gonna have a man or not. But I was kidding. And literally a year later,
That's
he was in
crazy,
my
man.
life. But the difference in that, like the key in that, was that I genuinely, by that point, like I knew who I was. Like I knew who I was in God. I had graduated. I was working in my career already. Like I was genuinely in such a place in my life that like I was okay being by myself. And like that's what I feel a lot of people lack. Like they feel like
good.
they need a relationship because that's gonna complete them. Like it's
That's
not like
good.
a 50-50 situation. No, like you have to be 100 to be
Amen.
that other person with another person that is already at 100.
Yeah.
Because Tommy says this all the time. Like some days I'm at 80, he needs to give 120. Some days he's at 50 and I have to give 150. You know, and if
Damn,
I'm
why-
not able to
Why
be,
am I always lower?
what do you mean? I said I'm at 80.
I'm joking, baby.
Whatever, you get the idea. So that's very important to know that about yourself. So this is kind of like a segue, is that how do you now, because obviously I know you guys personally, I know that you guys have very firm foundations in who you are personally. Like you guys as individuals, you're strong, together you're stronger, but how do you not lose yourself in marriage? Like
Ooh, that's
your
a-
individuality.
Yo, that's a
in
great
marriage.
question.
You got this.
I have it.
Ladies first.
Coffee.
I think something that I've implemented and I've shared with him a lot is that I fell in love with him as an individual. You know, so his individual self came with his hobbies. That means if he wants to get on with the boys, he came with that. I met him like that. He wants to go play, he loves to play tennis. He plays tennis. You know, he loves to do XYZ. And for me, it's like I met him as that. And I fell in love with that version,
That's so
and that
good.
should not change because we are now married.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
So for me, it's always been very important that he keeps his individuality as well. We're
good.
one, but he should never have to feel that he has to give up something completely.
That's good.
Obviously, with wisdom, guys, like now that you
There's
don't play.
parameters. Trust me.
Yes,
You
there
can't play
there are
pickleball every
parameters.
single weekend.
Yeah,
No,
but I
it's-
For
never.
5 hours.
No,
Can't do
that's
that.
we're not doing that.
Staying fit for you guys, right?
But I never wanted him to feel like he was losing himself just
That's good.
because he got married.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like I love to do my things, he loves to do his things. I don't want either of us to feel like we are giving this up just because we're married. You know, if anything, I welcome those things because those things make him happy. I'll never understand why playing video games with the boys and
I ask
shooting
myself every day.
at imaginary characters and being like a fake army person. Like
We're real army people,
Like,
Gabby. I don't know what you're
That's
talking
crazy.
about.
Don't
but
be
that brings
disrespecting
them
the military
joy, like
that.
being like, you know, like hearing the boys, like they're basically like on a group call you know, like every other night, and they're just that
Guy
brings
love
happiness.
is incredible, bro.
So
Great
for
memories.
me, honestly, so for me, it's kind of like
Beyond me,
if that makes
honestly.
you happy within the correct parameters, don't kill it. Don't go crazy.
Don't abuse now.
Literally.
Yes.
Then do it. You know, like I see no problem in that. So I encourage him still being his individual self
That's good.
within our marriage and vice versa.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really add nothing to that. I think that's very straightforward.
moment.
I think her and and I think, again, it goes back to a lot of like just talking about it. Because there's been times where I want to just go and, you know, do something multiple times. Sometimes I have a lot of work, or sometimes I play a lot of tennis or work, or, I mean, play with the boys, or whatever the case may be. But it's just keeping things balanced, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also the expectations, you know, like, hey, if I'm playing till 7 and I show up there at 8, you know, which happened once, and maybe she was there with dinner ready. Oh, bro, that was, you know,
La
it was a long
comida
night.
estaba
You know?
fría.
So if I
Was
tell
that
her
the
I'm gonna
night
be
that
there
you were laying in bed?
no, it wasn't. But it's just communication, you know, because it puts the right expectations.
That's
and it,
good.
like, imagínate, ya con la comida helada, and then I'm like, oh,
Like
sorry.
this, I'm like,
You know, like my game went to 6, so I had to like keep playing. No, so it's, you know, just that communication type of thing. But like, I think what she said is very important. Like, you come together and you're building something together, but remember that salvation is unique and personal, and so
Amen.
also, you know, the lives and things that you do are as well. And there's certain things that she's into that I'm not into, and there's certain things I'm into that she's not, you know. Like, I couldn't get into Love Island, but, you know, I would sit
Damn,
there
exposing me.
and hear her talk about Rob. And so,
Crazy.
so I kind of, but you know what? It's like those things where you have to kind of,
soul ties is crazy.
yeah, you have to bring down a little bit of the things and just share. And you sometimes I talk about the most random things to her that I know she's not interested in, but I'm
She
like,
still
it
listens.
feels nice to share
Yeah.
with someone. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I share something about what you were saying about, like, just before we move on, like the individualism about like knowing who you are? There was this one pastor that once told me and one of my friends, I think we were on a mission trip, and he gave the example of Adam, how Adam was working the fields, and then God said, I'll give you Eve. But it's not like Adam ever like asked for Eve, you know?
True. Yeah.
Like that he was working, and like you said, you were focusing on your career, you were focusing on your job, you were focusing on all these different things, and then boom,
Yeah,
Prince
literally.
Trump
Surprise.
came. Yeah. And so I think that's something for people to realize, that you have a purpose as
That's
an
so
individual.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of those little lanes in your purpose, that's where that partner is. You know,
Yeah.
it'll be there. So they don't have
Which
to worry
is
about
true.
that.
Sorry.
No, go, go.
Oh, which is true, because at the end of the day, the purpose of marriage is something that we were talking about with Apostle Douglas and Prophet Jessica this morning, is that for marriage, the purpose is, one, obviously pleasure. You know, like God allowed marriage to be pleasurable. Procreation, obviously through sex, but also there's purpose in marriage. You know, we're complements to each other. We help each other reach that place where God wants us to be, whether that's an individual goal, like you're saying, something that's together, but we help each other and complement each other on the areas that maybe we lack a little bit. There's areas that he lacks in that I'm strong in, and vice versa. There's areas that he's really strong in that I'm very weak in. You know, he is the happiest person you'll ever meet. I've gotten better at it, you know. I look mean, but I'm not that mean, I promise. But you know, those are just the things that are very important when it comes to marriage as well, and like the purpose and like the true foundation. People think marriage is just for fun, giggles, having sex, money, traveling together. Like, no, like there's purpose.
Amen.
There's something God given
Yeah.
behind it at the end of the
No,
day.
marriage in the kingdom of God, I think it's, if anything, is everything. Like,
Yeah.
like you can either make or break the purpose in your and your partner's life. And I
Yeah,
think
man,
there's a
that's so
lot of responsibility in that. Like, I think like, again, like that encounter with the Lord that day, like I felt such a responsibility for Gaby to make sure that she achieves the purpose that God has for her. And is it my full responsibility? No, but now we're partnering in this together. And a lot of it is about me and her and doing things together. So there is so much purpose in marriage that we need to be.
No, and I love that you guys have all touched on. Gabs, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was.
Go.
But like Joss was saying, like marriage isn't just for like the giggles and the fun,
Yeah.
but you should encourage like being tested and being tried
That's true.
before marriage.
That's
you know,
true.
your identity should be tested. Like
Yeah.
there's a phrase that I keep saying, and it's like stand on business. And in this case, it's like stand on your values.
Yeah.
You know, stand in the word of God, stand in the foundation that, you know, he has planted for you, you know. And in marriage, it's the same thing. Just because you're together, if anything, you are more of a liability for the enemy. You know, there's more at risk when two have gathered together to serve the kingdom of God. So if you thought you were tested when it was just you as a person, you're now going to be tested as a unit.
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of like encourage being tested, encourage being tried, because that's what's going to keep your foundation and it's going to make you stronger in the Lord.
Come on.
But yeah, that was my
No, and
2 cents.
that's so good because it's funny because testing comes before, like you were saying, like build yourself up for that, because in marriage, when you go through tests and difficult moments, like how much more hard, like more difficult is that? Like I know you guys have gone through stuff, but we've gone through stuff like early on in marriage, and it's like that level of faith that you need to have at that point, not just for your own self, but for that other person, because like Josh, like baby, you were saying, like sometimes I'm lacking that day, and if it's like a difficult situation that's burdening not just that person but also you, now it's like you need to carry that load with faith to a whole nother level. And it's like you're saying, if you're not battle tested beforehand, like I think I love that you said that. It's like challenge yourself to believe for things. Like if anybody's watching, you're engaged, like believe for God to pay for something off in your wedding, you know.
Heck
believe
yeah.
for God to supply for a house. Like why not? Like those moments of faith will build you up, because Lord knows how much more faith you're gonna need when it comes to actually being married and the things that you experience as one, because it's not easy, man.
It's tough out here.
It's not
And
easy.
it's funny you said that. Like one of the prophetic words we received, I think actually it was in the studio, was that 80% of our wedding was going to get paid.
Amen.
And so how does that look like? And so I remember that day after engagement, we sat down and we are like, all right, darling, what's the budget? You know, like what are we believing for? Like let's set up
So
a budget
good.
for our wedding and something that's realistic, and we'll believe for 80% of that to get paid.
No.
And that's how we approached it. Because
Wow.
80% of what?
Yeah.
Right? Like we need to give
That's
God
true.
something
Yeah.
for it to be 80%. So I'm like, is it
That's
100,000? I'm like, I don't think our faith is there. But, you know, like, what are we comfortable with? And we came up with this number and we're like, are you okay with this? Yes, I'm okay with this. Okay. And then we said, Lord, let's believe for 80%. And just like he promised, like
That's
that 80%
crazy,
was taken care of.
That's
And
insane.
I think it's just, it's a testimony of God's goodness. And like you said, there's things that the Lord wants for his children. And just like I'm sure like our parents would love to pay for our wedding if they could 100%, or like give us a gift, a wedding gift. Bro, your heavenly father too. Like
Yeah, that's very true,
And so
man.
if you have that revelation that he's your father, you're his child, you love God and he loves you more than we can ever. Like even in something as like insignificant for him that money is, he'll take care of it.
Yeah, the owner
Yeah.
of the silver and gold.
And I think that like it just brought to memory in that season, like Alejo provoked my faith like crazy.
That's
Because I
awesome,
remember
man.
when we got that word and we did the budget and we had the number, like I had that in my account and he had that on his. So to me, I was like, oh, we can just pay for this wedding cash. Like that's it. And he's like, that's not what the Lord said.
Damn.
And I was like, he's like, we're going to believe for that 80.
Wow.
And he's like, and we're not going to touch our savings.
What
And
a
I
man of
remember being
God,
like,
bro.
all right, you know. And to me, it's like you should be with someone that provokes your faith.
Definitely.
You should be with someone that fans your flame. You should be with someone that's pushing you closer to the Lord, because if you're not, then at the end of the day, you're just compromising.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's really good. And like, which leads me to like the same thing that we've been mentioning, like the importance of being with someone that has like that same foundation, the same beliefs, the
So true.
same, you know, thought process in everything that we do. And I think last question also is that you guys just got married five months ago. What are some things that you guys have been able to incorporate now in your marriage that has helped you as far as like on the spiritual aspect, like praying, like advice that you can give new marriages, you know, I don't know, reading the word together, stuff like that. I don't know if you guys do, but just to wrap up.
I think together, like there's something that we've struggled a lot with was sometimes just creating the time to do things together. And it's something that we're constantly like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. But I think also like individually, we just we kind of keep each other in check. You know, we keep each other in check, we keep each other accountable, we keep each other, like I think what she said, just pushing each other to be closer to God. And that's why I think it's so important, your individualism before you get into marriage, because that carries on, you know. And I know that she loves God, and I think she knows that I love God. And so even like sometimes sitting down together and receiving is important, you know,
Sure.
like working together, like, you know, whether it's serving or, you know, ministering together, or just sharing something like what you received here, what you received there, like your encounters, you know, like whenever she receives something from the Lord, she shares it with me. Same thing with me. Like
So
it's this
good.
constant, like just building, because she has the time with the Lord. I have my own time with the Lord, and it's coming together to be like, look, this is our God, you know, sharing the goodness of the Lord with each other
So
has
good.
really been very helpful. And just constantly trying to be better. You know, I think that to say, oh my God, we're perfect, we're not. Like we've always like, we need to make time to read the word together. We need to make time to pray together. And sometimes we start and then it kind of like, you know, something happens that day and you kind of miss it. But then that's why it's important to be able to have that relationship with the Lord, where maybe like if I'm in my car or I'm working, I'm doing something, maybe I have some time to be with the Lord. I don't need to be waiting for Gaby to be there, but I'm also expecting for her to do the same.
Yeah.
And so it's just a constant, like, I guess, being very aware that we are in need of the Lord.
Of course.
And that we didn't make it, and that we're not perfect. And so, and just recognizing that, you know, I think people that are like, oh, like we do this and we do that and it's perfect, we're not, you know, and but we're constantly striving to be as close to Jesus as possible.
Definitely.
And to keep on learning and growing, you know, because like Alejo said, when you sit there and you say, oh, I'm perfect, I'm in my best season, and it's like it's been 2 years of you saying that, you know, at some point,
Reality
like
check.
I hope you are, you know, but in the Lord there's always improvement.
Right.
Glory
No
to
matter
glory.
what.
Yeah, you just
Literally. And like to go from glory to glory, you're tested in the middle. You have to believe for that
100%.
glory.
Yeah.
If not, it's just glory.
she's
You know?
preaching out here too.
So it's like, you know, like I said, welcome imperfection. And so that you have something to work towards always, you know, and I feel like that keeps marriage alive as well. When you're constantly like working towards something together, working on personal development, working on spiritual development, physical development as well.
That's
like
true.
working out, you know, being active, you know, like it's important, you know, like every area of your life should be active.
And just to expand a little bit more on that, I think believing for something together has helped us a lot.
That's great, man.
And in this season, we've both been believing for things together, and it just kind of keeps you on the same page. You know, it keeps you hungry, it keeps you focused. So even if it's like maybe you're believing for a house, or you're believing for a breakthrough, you're believing for a deliverance, a healing, whatever it is, it really keeps you kind of focused up, you know, keeps you focused in, and that has been very helpful for us. Yeah.
No, definitely.
good.
Did you want to read something?
No.
Oh, I thought I saw you pulling up a verse.
no.
Do it.
It
No.
happens.
Anyways, so to sum up in marriage, it says in Ephesians 5:33, it says, to sum up, each one of you is to love his wife as himself, and the wife is to respect her husband. So at the end of the day,
Respect.
respect each other, keep on getting
Déjame.
better, and you know,
Yeah,
let
I-
the Lord
your
do
wives.
his
Well,
thing.
but I guess to end too, like I love the fact that I think that would encourage anybody watching, like you guys talked about. I think preparing yourself to be that husband or wife is so key. I think in your preparation for marriage is asking God. As I remember, I think you told, I don't know who it was, I shared it with you, that we were like, pray to ask God to teach you to be the wife that your husband needs. So a lot of times, like, what was it? Can you explain that again?
Yeah, I remember I asked someone for advice before marriage, and you know, a lot of times we have the tendency of, Lord, let this person be I pray that this person be this, be that, and like help that man be a good wife, a husband or whatever, or like the man is like, help my wife be a good wife, but we forget to pray that over ourselves, to pray like, Lord, help me be a good wife. Prepare me to be a good wife for my husband, you know. So like, not to be selfish, but to also pray that the Lord prepare us first. You know, it starts with us at the end of the day.
That's good.
Amen.
So
Cool. Well, if you guys are watching, thank you for tuning in. If you made it this far, we appreciate y'all, and we'll see you guys next time. Everything you heard here, apply it. Remember, these are our experiences, but you won't be able to experience it until you try it. So
Come on.
best of luck to y'all. Believe for your weddings to get paid. I love you guys.
And stand on business,
Come
aka
on,
your
guys.
values.
We need,
Hashtag-
to, make, we
and
need
faith.
to make merch.
Hashtag stand on business. I love you guys. Peace.